When I first married Emily, I knew her father, Charles Whitmore, wasn't exactly thrilled. Charles was old money. His family's name was engraved on buildings, their company older than most of the city itself. I was, well, just a man with an MBA and ambition. Emily never cared. She always said I was different from the men she grew up around. The ones born with everything handed to them. I odekt, I pusht, I fått for opportunities. And when Charles's company, Whitmore Industries, started to bleed after a series of bad investments, I stepped in. At first, I was only meant to help out. Charles let me into the boardroom reluctantly. His executives saw me as the outsider, the son-in-law. But numbers don't lie. Within 2 years, I turned his stagnant company into a machine. We cut waste, expanded overseas, and within 5 years, revenue soared to $85 million annually. For the first time, Charles clapped my shoulder at a board meeting and said, "Maybe you're not entirely useless." That was his way of saying good job. I didn't care. I wasn't in it for his approval. I was in it for Emily. She believed in me. Every late night, every risk I took, every sleepless hour was for us. But things began to change. Emily grew distant. At first, I thought it was stress. She'd stop answering my calls during the day, saying she was busy with friends. She started dressing differently, more glamorous, like she was attending events I wasn't invited to. I told myself marriage had phases, that maybe I was too focused on the business. But then came the dinner. Charles invited me to his estate. It wasn't unusual. We often had family dinners, though they always felt more like interrogations. When I walked in, though, I noticed something strange. The atmosphere was celebratory. Glasses of champagne clinked, the staff buzzing as if preparing for an announcement. Emily sat at the long dining table, glowing, her smile wider than I'd seen in months. Next to her sat a man I had never met. Broad shoulders, slick hair, expensive suit. He looked too comfortable in that chair, in my place. "Ah, you made it," Charles boomed, standing with arms open. "Sit down, son, sit down. Tonight is special." I took my seat, directly across from Emily. Her eyes flicked away, as if guilty. The stranger raised his glass toward me with a smirk. Charles cleared his throat, standing at the head of the table. "As you know, Whitmore Industries has seen its golden age restored. Thanks in part to our dear son-in-law here." He gestured lazily at me, like I was just another employee. $85 million in growth, can you imagine? The table applauded. Emily didn't. She just looked down at her plate. "But," Charles continued, "as with all legacies, there comes a time for transition, for new leadership." He smiled wide now, almost cruelly. "And I'm proud to say the next era of Whitmore Industries will be led by." He paused, letting suspense hang in the air. "My daughter's new husband." The words hit like ice water. My eyes snapped to Emily. She didn't look shocked. She didn't look upset. She just sat there, quietly, as if she had been preparing for this. The man beside her reached over, resting his hand on hers. My chest tightened. I laughed, but it came out hollow. "New husband? What the hell are you talking about?" Emily finally met my gaze. "I filed the papers last week," she said softly. I didn't know how to tell you." My throat closed. Divorce? Just like that? After everything? After I built her family's empire back from ashes? Charles chuckled, sipping his wine. "Don't look so shocked. You've done well, but you've always been a placeholder. Emily deserves someone who belongs in this world. Someone like Daniel here." He gestured to the smug stranger. Daniel leaned forward. "Nothing personal, man. Business is business." The room spun. My mind raced. Years of sacrifice, loyalty, endless work, ripped away in a single dinner. But what Charles and Emily didn't know was that I wasn't as naive as they thought. Because when I started rebuilding Whitmore Industries, I didn't just save it. I structured it. I rewrote contracts, shifted assets, created holding companies in my name. On paper, Whitmore Industries was profitable. But the real power, the patents, the subsidiaries, the overseas branches, were tied directly to me. I had been preparing for this moment all along. I leaned back in my chair, forcing a smile. "Well," I said slowly, "congratulations. I wish you both happiness. Emily blinked. Charles frowned, as if expecting me to explode. But instead I stood, adjusted my tie, and walked out. No fight. No begging. Just silence. The next morning, I made the call. One call. To the board. To the lawyers. To the partners overseas who trusted me, not Charles. By noon, every critical contract was triggered, every clause enforced. By evening, Whitmore Industries wasn't Whitmore Industries anymore. It was mine. Charles found out the hard way. His credit lines froze. His executives quit. Factories overseas stopped production under his name. Because on every dotted line that mattered, it wasn't Whitmore Industries. It was Harrison Global, my company. 2 days later, I walked back into that same estate. This time, Charles didn't greet me with open arms. Emily and Daniel sat in the study, panic written across their faces. Charles snarled, "What have you done?" I sat calmly, pouring myself a drink. "You wanted a transition of power. Consider it done." Emily's voice trembled. You can't do this." "Oh, I already did," I said coldly. "While you were busy planning your little affair, I was planning for survival. You thought you were trading up. Instead, you traded everything away." Daniel stood, fists clenched. "You don't scare me." I laughed. "You should be scared. Because without me, you have nothing. No company. No money. No future." The silence that followed was heavier than stone. Charles sank into his chair, his empire slipping through his fingers. Emily's eyes welled with tears, but I felt nothing. I stood, finishing my drink. "Enjoy your new husband, Emily. Let's see how long he sticks around when there's nothing left to inherit." And with that, I walked away, not the man they dismissed, but the man who had taken everything. Because in business, and in life, the one rule I had always lived by was simple. Never build someone else's empire. Build your own. And now, I finally had mine.